Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. Um, I'm gonna apologize for that last story for those of you that may have actually listened in on it. It was cancer, and that is the utmost imperfect way I can put that. It was an absolute chore in my mind to make, but you know what? It's kind of fun to read things like that and try not to gag. I apologize if it wasn't very edited and there were a lot of grammatical errors in my part with speaking, but unfortunately I didn't want to go back and edit all that because I don't want to listen to myself talking about a milk enema. Ugh, no thank you. Anyways, on tonight's agenda, at least for me, it's pretty late while I'm recording this. We are going to be reading something that's a little bit more near and dear to my heart. I have a thing and passion for creepy stories, especially if they're real. So, tonight we're going to be delving into the world of urban exploration, and some of the stories, at least some of the creepier stories that go along with it. This is going to be the first part of a 3-part series. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're ready for a somewhat creepy story that may have some truth to it, please sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, maybe some food after all, and enjoy. The complex corridors to this abandoned asylum were the idea behind its design. It was done to confuse the patients, and if they were confused, they were more likely to stay in their common area rather than exploring the labyrinth of walkways and stairs. It was getting late, and I remember the rain, which was pouring, and the wind was blowing steadily. After a long journey, the asylum finally stood before me. The plan was to just get in, get some shots using specialized lighting, and then get out again. The door was partly open as if they were awaiting a guest. I thought about this for a while and laughed before entering the grand reception. Any photographer knows that feeling when they have a new canvas to play with, and this was no exception. I started making notes on areas to visit so that I didn't lose time by walking through the entire asylum. I'd been scouting for around 25 minutes when I first heard something. I was walking down a corridor which ran the entire length of the asylum. It was the one place that connected all of the buildings, the meeting place of the many complexities. The corridor was sectioned off by heavy-duty fire doors. I know a little bit about this type of door, and it takes a significant amount of effort to move one and approximately 20 seconds to close it. When it does close, it makes an unmistakable thud. In an abandoned place, you can hear a pin drop. So when the corridor was filled with that exact thud, I knew I wasn't alone. My mind tried to come up with any and every logical explanation possible. Pigeons? No, they can't move fire doors. An animal? No, not them either. Perhaps wind. There wasn't even a breeze inside this place. Okay, I thought. It must be another person. Maybe a copper thief? Probably. Hopefully. I continued to move, more delicately than before, mostly looking over my shoulder instead of where I was going. The next thing that happened stopped me dead in my tracks. The heavy footsteps were calm and well-timed. I knew whoever it was already had a minimum of 20 seconds on me, so I decided to do what anyone else would, leave. Taking the left-hand corridor would lead me to a joining corridor, then up the stairs and then take a right. The exit would be right there. I moved quickly and quietly, following the directions in my head and then... Wait, what? Pausing for breath, heart beating faster. I could hear the sound of footsteps getting quicker, getting louder. The reality hit me hard. My directions were wrong. I hadn't been to this part of the asylum before. My mental map disintegrated in the footsteps. But the footsteps were so close. They must have been where I was standing just before I decided to make a break for it. Panicking, I burst into a run, abandoning all hope of being silent in my escape. Making the typical horror movie mistake, I took the next door, which happened to be one of several patient cells, and hid myself around the back of the door, with just the sound of my heartbeat exploding in my eardrums. The sound of the footsteps disappeared. At the time, I was hoping to hear a security guard's radio, or possibly a calming whistle. Anything that would help me figure out what was behind the footsteps. Slowly moving to get more comfortable as I hid, my camera's tripod hit the wall loudly, and in less than a second the footsteps started once again. They were just around the corner. I braced for impact. At least I would get to find out who this was. The collection of horror films I've watched in the past certainly wasn't helping. I listened closely to every single footstep, and whoever this was now standing outside the door of the cell I was hiding in. With one eye peeking through the door gap, I couldn't see him yet. What was this? They began to walk away again, calm and steady. The corner muted the sound, so they must have gone around it. My desire to find out what had been following me wasn't as strong as my desire to stay safe in the cell. So I stayed and listened to the footsteps, getting further and further away, followed by the familiar thud as the fire door closed. The silence. After 30 whole minutes of waiting in silence, I got up and got ready to get out. Striding as fast as my legs would take me back along the corridor, I took a left and quickly realized that this was the left I was supposed to take earlier. Stop. Senses running wild, no noises, no footsteps. Move! Up the stairs. The next right was the reception. The door was closed. I couldn't remember if it was me who closed it, but I assumed it was. Part of me thought that when I tried to return the handle, it would be locked and I'd be trapped in here with whoever the footsteps belonged to. I tried to shake the thought. The handle turned, and as I stepped out, I've never been happier to feel the rain on my face. I didn't find out who it was that had been following me that night. I keep telling myself that it was just another curious explorer. But I guess we're never gonna find out for sure. Alright, so I may have actually lied when I said that this was going to be a 3-part series. I didn't quite realize how short these stories actually were. So we're going to do parts 2 and 3 next. So ladies and gentlemen, refresh your drinks, grab some more snacks, and enjoy. A scare attraction company asked me for some ideas for its upcoming Halloween special event in America. They needed something quickly, so I agreed to get something together for them. I often make digital horror art, and this involves photography. For photography, I needed a location. And while obviously I'm hesitant, I decided to return to the haunted asylum that had terrified me only a week ago. Summoning up my courage, that evening my partner and I got into the car and headed to the store and bought some props for the shoot. With a shopping list consisting of surgical outfits and fresh lamb's hearts, the cashier was definitely a little concerned. I thought she was thinking of calling someone, but she checked out the goods and we were on our way. We got to the asylum just after midnight, found our way in, and headed to the areas which would look best as a backdrop for some crazy shots of a crazy doctor. While heading up the stairs, I couldn't help but think of last week's encounter. Were they still here? Would I get to find out who or what was making those footsteps? We found a perfect room, and started setting up. We tested the lighting, and then I began my transformation from Sophos 9 to Crazy Doctor. Not long after, we had some great shots and started to pack up. Suddenly, my partner put her fingers to her lips and whispered a desperate shh in my direction. I stopped dead in my tracks and stood staring at the door as we heard banging footsteps followed by a deep moaning sound. The sound was getting closer. No words, just bang, bang, bang! Right on the door we were behind. We stood still, terrified. The moans and footsteps echoed away, getting further and further down the corridor. I finally took a breath after holding it for what seemed an eternity. My partner was looking slightly pale. I asked a stupid question. Hey, did you hear that? Yeah, she whispered. The moaning became faint, coming from the far side of the asylum as we finished packing up our equipment. Quickly leaving the room, we tracked back to the exit point. We didn't see who or what was making the noise before we left, but we could still hear the moaning as we returned to the car. Did the moaning belong to the same person as last week's footsteps? I'm glad we weren't around to find out. My third and final story brings us to the photos I took in the abandoned asylum. A few days had passed, and after some of the other shoots in different places, I finally had a chance to sit and look through the pictures from that fateful day. You see, the way I work is I look across my images, getting rid of the bad, keeping the good, and putting some aside for reworking. And after a pretty straightforward selection, something in one of the photos caught my eye. A zoom and crop revealed something that appeared sinister. I went back to the original image to see it without any noise from my processing cycle. Did I finally get to meet what was lurking in the abandoned asylum? Was this just a trick of the light? I don't know the answer, but I'll finish on this. A large part of the asylum was demolished for future planning, and we've never been back since. On our return visits, nothing remotely spooky has happened. It's as though whatever it was vanished with those areas of the building. Like I said as I started, I'm not a believer in the supernatural. But out of the hundreds of places I've explored, nothing has ever come close to the things I experienced in that asylum.